with us. It's Remorker Architects. We have here the founders of the studio, Dušica and Marko. I've seen some of your buildings. They're remarkable. Architectural projects. I'm less familiar with your interior projects, but quite amazing revamping of the old buildings, as we would say, a lift up to the facade, just like in plastic surgery, people go that obviously buildings can go through the same transformation, metamorphosis. So you have received the award of the city of Belgrade for architecture and urbanism, as well, and several other recognitions. You're a young office, so I don't want to take any of your time. I'd like to hear more about how do you approach these limited projects, because you simply just deal with the facade, maybe 4 or 5 meters deeper, but also there is, in some of these projects I've seen also that you had to respond to change of the program within the building, but at the same time you couldn't change the structure, so that poses a problem. You have to change the building and the use, but not really structurally change it. So that's a challenge, I assume, and we would like to hear something. How do you approach, and what's your methodology?
Should we go to the stage or?
Well, you can, if you have a presentation, you can go, yeah.
Okay, so should we start? Yeah. We are here today to present our teamwork. As you can see, we are a young team studio based in Belgrade, and we are working from 2014. Today our team counts 11 young but very creative and passionate architects. So our wish with today's presentation is to share with you our experience in redevelopment projects we've been working on last 2.5 years. We hope that these examples of refurbished buildings and their facades can be a good guideline for someone who might be dealing with similar tasks. So Mark will introduce you a bit more about Belgrade's refurbishment processes. Marko.
Hello, everyone. Sorry. Yeah, well, as we are aware here in Belgrade, there are many historical buildings in central Belgrade that are in very poor condition due to the decades of neglect and poor maintenance. And the examples for this we can find in many government and public buildings, but also the offices of the companies that office buildings for the companies that were from the time of socialism that did not survive the transition period. The reasons for this, of course, we may find in the overall collapse in the 90s, or maybe the slow recovery after the beginning of the new millennium. However, the situation today is different, and we see a very strong influx of the capital, and the market is growing. So the need for square meters is high, and we can see construction sites all over Belgrade building new office buildings. However, what happens with the infrastructure that we already possess, the buildings that were here for so many decades, they were built to accommodate the businesses of the 60s and the 70s. And now they are sold to the market for very affordable prices, mostly because of the fact that they are not able to accommodate businesses of today. they need to be refurbished, redeveloped. They need to, they need a lot of investment. And now, not only that we need to change the interior of the building and the installations inside, but most of the time we need to change the facade as well. Now, the reason for this, there are actually two reasons for this. One is that the materials used in the 1960s and the 70s, they do not have a good insulation coefficient, and the buildings lose a lot of energy for heating and cooling, and new materials can solve this problem. However, the second and probably more important reason is the appeal, because when the investor puts a lot of money in the refurbishment process, he wants to have a building that's desirable. And the architecture of the socialist era does not necessarily answer these needs. What we are accustomed to thinking of is that the architecture of the socialist era is associated with cheap materials, maybe simple forms, and those are not the attributes that are praised today. So, therefore, it is often the wish of the owner to change the appearance of the building completely, to give it a new look, a fresh look, that would be more appealing to the possible tenants, that would keep the rent high. Now, with changing the appearance completely, since these buildings are in the center of the city, this is a very controversial issue, because being there for so long, they have become the part of this society's collective image of what the city looks like. And if we are to change this image, then we have to approach to it with respect and care. And most of the time, it is necessary to consult the Institute for Protection of the Monument. Now, sometimes these limitations are very strict, and other times they are more loose, and you can express yourself with some bolder architectural solutions. And well, that's it. Without further ado, there are those 4 buildings that we did in the last 2 years, and Dušica is going to present the first one.
So, just a second. Yeah. Our first project that we wanted to present you is Resavska 31 Business Center. This project is nominated for Mies van der Rohe Award for 2025, and this was the former office building of a large company, Jugochemia, which is built in 1968, and our task was to transform it to a small business center with 1 company per floor. So when we start dealing with the project, we have few main problems. One of them was construction, because construction was built before and wasn't in today's regulation of seismical regulations. Yeah. Also, a big problem was very low energy efficiency coefficient index, and also the regulations of fire protections was much lower than today. So at the end of process, this building go through significant changes. So, okay. Also, one of the big problems was a very ugly, dark, and almost invisible entrance. So we wanted to open it and make it more lighter and welcoming. So we introduced this facade wall, which twists from outside to interior and transforms to lobby desk. So now lobby is much more open, and the level of the ground floor becoming almost part of the street. Okay. So when we come to building fronts, they are treated differently according to importance of the street which they're facing. So main facade in Resavska street is made as a glass curtain with double layered glass and with vertical brisolates which are made from aluminum. With this treatment, we protect the people who's working inside from direct sunlight in afternoon hours and also from busy street life outside of the building and influence from Resavska street. So also, we get attention to design of inner lights, so we could get better 3D feel of the building. Also, ground level facade part is covered with gold perforated panels. And I can go up, yeah. In addition to vertical bars, there is also white linear print over the glass facade. The diagonal lines and vertical bars gives the dynamic facade look, and it's almost moving when is observed from across the street. And when it comes to Misharska street facade, it's treated totally different because this street is more narrow and we have high parapets and regular windows. Across the building is a hotel, so we needed to defend from the views. Facade is done in Demit technique and it's covered with horizontal aluminum elements, which stress strong perspective of the narrow street. One of the strong elements in design is also sunroof, which is placed on the top of the building, and it's framing the building their cubic shape. So the main things that we wanted to achieve, and two crucial things, are the better efficiency index, then good protection from outdoor influence, and we got this unique multi-layer lace and modern look of facade and building. Mark will present you rest projects, 3 more.
Yes. Okay, this was another building from the 70s, 60s for the company named Trudbenik, which was a construction company. And as you can see, at the time, the spirit of solidarity and social responsibility dictated that company's headquarters has to have a modest and not pretentious architecture. And the result is mostly that these buildings are very functional, but with poor attractive design. And since the inner structure is very good, our main task here was to give this building an attractive new facade. Also, this building was not considered to be a monument of protection that should be protected by the Institute, and therefore we had a lot of freedom to express ourselves the way we wanted. Now, as you can see, the whole existing glass facade was completely removed, and also the parapets in the ground floor. So the new facade was to start from the first floor upwards, leaving the ground floor free and light with this colonnade of very narrow pillars supporting it. And from the first floor upward, the facade was covered in aluminum panels that would hide the insulation, and in between which there would be a very narrow and high windows. If you take a look at the building, you will see that the facade to the left and the one to the right do not look like the same. And this is achieved with the difference in depth of the brisolates that we used. So the deepest bristles are on the left side, and there are no bristles on the right side. This transition forms a very interesting play in geometry that's very much appreciated by the street viewer. Of course, as you can see, some of the windows are covered in perforated panels that have this parametric pattern. The last two floors of the building are joined in the windows. The windows are like double height, and this gave this very elegant finishing on the top of the building. I think that you will see just in the second one. Yes, these are some details of the facade. And in the end, this project was very well received by the public and by our colleagues as well. And in the end, we received the award of the City of Belgrade for this project, for the architecture for 2018. Also, we changed, these are the three crucial things we achieved. We changed the energy efficiency index. We gave the tenants protection against the direct sunlight because this facade was directed to the south, and the sun is very strong. So with these bristles and perforated panels, we allowed them to defend from that light. And in the third thing was that we achieved a very interesting and dynamic geometry play. So this is the third building that we did, and it is a pretty much different project to the first two, because this was an abandoned old factory, textile factory in the central district of Belgrade. It was different not only in terms of scale, because this was a 20,000 square meters building, whereas the first two were about 4,000. It was also different in terms of preservation requirements, because being close to Kalemegdan, this building was closely observed while the restoration was going by the Institute, of course, for the preservation. So the building was designed in the manner of industrial academism in the 1930s, and its facade was to remain the same after the reconstruction. It was obligatory. On the other hand, the building had to be better isolated, and we needed to add another layer or a layer of insulation on all four sides of the building. Now, the solution for this was to mimic the shapes and forms that were once built in cement in a new material, endemic facade. And we did so very successfully. The shapes are not exactly the same, but overall, the architecture feels the same. And you won't be able to see where the changes are not exactly, where we didn't make the exact same shapes. Apart from that, we also put new windows, which were in 3-layer glass, and we put a new roof on top. There is an additional floor that we introduced. That's all covered in glass curtain, 3-layer glass, and a flat roof above it. So during the restoration of the facade, we also did the interior work on the inside, and it was a much more demanding task. What we wanted to achieve, well, when we first came to the building, it was abandoned for 20 years and had no roof. So it was a total disaster. There was no mortar on the wall, there was no ceiling, concrete was exposed everywhere. So we wanted to achieve this feel in the inside that we saw the first time that we were there. And we left the concrete plates exposed. We left the concrete pillars exposed, and we gave the building this industrial look because that was an industrial building. All the installations, of course, remained open, and the only thing that we introduced new was the office boxes that were with a lower ceiling than the ceiling of the floor, so that these offices were just implemented into the space and not harming it, not changing it. You can see that in the section here and those two photos. Well, coming back to the facade, that was the things that we achieved. There was a 25 or 20 or 15 centimeters layer of insulation that achieved this dynamic in the plaster of the building. Also, we preserved the original architecture that we found, and then we gave it a fresh modern look by giving it with two palette colors, one for the lower part of the building and one for the upper part. Okay, and the last building here is the M44 project, which, well, when we started working on it, we had a question: should we keep the existing architecture or should we change it completely? And the owner asked us to give two solutions and to offer it. We have to. I'm sorry, we have to.
Okay.
Okay, we can just go through the.
And this is the facade.
The facade details. And that's it. Okay.
Conclusion.
Is that okay? Yeah, okay.
Malo smo preterali.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a couple of questions. When you say triple layered, double layer, do you mean laminated glass or do you mean double chamber facade elements in double insulation or?
No, we just mean the windows, the glass that was put in the windows. Sometimes it's two-layer glass, sometimes
So it's
three-layer
laminated
glass.
glass.
Yes,
yes. Can you give me an example, one of those projects that you use some innovation, especially for the local, in terms of local context, that you use some new technology to achieve functionality? We all know that the facade is a membrane that shields users and enables a comfort by controlling temperature, daylighting, as well as noise, and atmospheric effects such as rain, snow, etc. So there have been many advances in terms of facade engineering. Did you have a chance on your projects to use some of these new technologies that, at least in local context, they present a leap forward?
well, these are not new technologies that we used here. What we used was a ventilated facade. That's something that has been used before. Maybe the use of aluminum plates is something new, the one in Bulevar Street building, but relatively new, like a few years. But it's not the only project that was used here. Also, the dammit facade is a technique that was used quite a long time now. So these were not innovative solutions.
Okay.
They were just applied to the existing ones.
And
Maybe the bristolays in Resavska Street, the thin ones, they are designed to defend from the sunlight at a specific time of the day when the building is lit from that side.
that's the building on Bulevar.
No,
right?
the Resavska Street.
Resavska. Because I've noticed that the bristolays on Boulevard is integrated within the facade
Yes.
system.
Yes.
The other one is more like a screen that's
Yes.
attached, and it's much
Like
shallower,
lace.
so effects are radically different. Did you actually did some daylighting studies, or as well as related to the insulation of the
yes,
building?
for Resavska Street, yes.
Yeah.
The Bulevar building was pretty easy. It was directing south, and it was very much clear that throughout the day it will be lit all the time. But Resavska was different. It had this. It has sun only after 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So that was the starting point of the thinking about the solution.
Okay. Well, thank you for the presentation. It was amazing. We're moving because we have a tight schedule.